Welcome to another episode of the DubCast podcast. At this point, Majors Week, it is a tradition to have the man, the myth, the legend, Kenny the Moonshot on to break down the upcoming event. Kenny, how we doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I am fired up. I love this tournament. I absolutely love this tournament. And it's a major. It's the U.S. Open. It's always going to be fun. But I think as golf fans, especially if you're a golfer yourself, I just think it's a little like settling. It's a little satisfying to watch the best players in the world struggle. And you don't really get to see that a whole lot. And you are going to see it this weekend. It's going to be absolute carnage. So I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a good weekend.
Amongst all the majors, what would you say is your favorite? It sounds like this may be the event that you like more than any of them, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts there.
I don't really have a good answer. I love them all in their own way. I mean, my least favorite, I guess, would probably be the PGA, and I'm sure most golf fans would probably say that. Like, I love the Masters. The week of the Masters is just like my favorite week of the year in sports. But then I love the U.S. Open for everything that I just said, and then even like the British Open, the Open Championship has a special place in my heart. There's just something fun about waking up at 4:30 in the morning on a Thursday and watching some golf. Like I remember watching it like before school and stuff back in the day. So it's a non-committal answer, but they're all fun in their own way.
All right, well, let's dive into what's going to make this so much fun, because as we were prepping for the call, you were giving me a little sneak preview of the carnage that's going to take place over the course of the next 4 days. Fill us in on what you're hearing on the ground.
It's going to be a bloodbath, dude. So I haven't seen the most updated price, but like the total over under was set at, I think, like -4.5 a couple days ago on books just for the winning score. And that may even get lower. So we're at Pinehurst this week down in Carolina. Hosted the 2014 U.S. Open and the 2005 U.S. Open. So we do have, some good history here to work off of. It is just it's one of the most unique courses that you're going to see. It's going to be really dry, really baked out, and it's probably the firmest and fastest greens arguably in the world. I mean, you can make the case for Augusta. This place is going to be rolling a lot faster than Augusta this week. They haven't gotten any rain down there in the last week or so. There's no rain in the forecast this week. And everything that I'm reading, man, it is borderline impossible to hold these greens from the fairway. I mean, they're as bouncy as can be. They're really fast, and they're incredibly undulated. They all sort of have this like anthill shape to it. So if you're not like in the most perfect spot, like there's probably at most like a 5-yard window that you could land your ball on the green and have it actually hold the green. Otherwise, it's rolling off into the short grass or into one of the bunkers. So it's just gonna be brutal. And on the sides of the fairways, I mean, the fairways are going to be going just as fast. So you don't really need to be a bomber here. Like if you put a ball in the fairway, it's just not going to stop rolling. So it kind of neutralizes distance a little bit. The problem with that is it's harder to control these tee shots. And all the fairways are lined with this like sandy brush or, gorse, I guess is like the term that they're using for it. And it's essentially a coin flip in there if you have a lie to play out of. Like you could get a dream lie that's flat and is essentially playing like fairway, or you could be buried under a bush. And you're not going to know until you find your ball and see what you're working with here. So because of that, it brings in like an element of randomness and just of luck. The one caddy I was talking to earlier, the one word that he used was luck. He said there is just a high luck factor this week. And when that's the case, it is a little more difficult to handicap. And I think if anything, that penalizes the best players in the world. Like historically at the US Open, it's always the toughest venues. So like the cream rises to the top. The best players play well at US Opens. Like it's pretty rare to see like a super long shot come in and win it. When you add in this element of luck and variance and this other stuff, it in a weird way, it kind of evens the playing field just a little bit. Now, I still think the best players have the best shot to compete. Like Scotty's the favorite. He should be the favorite. He's probably going to win. But I think like a course like this, I think it penalizes him more than it suits him just because like he could hit an absolute dream shot into a green, get a bad bounce, and then he's in the bunker. Like it's like the margin of error is just non-existent.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. One, you mentioned that the under-over of finishing position is 4.5. You made the call of the PGA Championship saying that there were going to be tons of low numbers out there.
Yep.
With obviously Xander running away with it at 21 under. Is that something that you'll be on the final score total, or how are you going to target that?
I don't think so. Like, I think what I'm going to do is what we did for the first round. I'll tell you this. We targeted a couple particular holes that are going to play even tougher than the rest. Again, the whole course is hard. In 2014, the toughest hole on the course was the par 3 6th hole. It's the first par 3 you're going to see if you're going off the front. It'll play anywhere from 215 to 230 yards. And there's no safe place to put this pin. The entire green funnels into greenside bunkers. There's a big false front. The back runs off. And again, like these greens are going to be hard to hold when you're hitting a wedge. They're going to be borderline impossible to hold if you're hitting like a 3-iron 225 yards. So I think you're going to see a lot of bogeys there. So like my take was I picked 4 guys that I thought were awful with their long irons, were overall just in poor form coming into this and weren't the best scramblers. And I took 4 guys that kind of met that criteria and were all playing in the afternoon. I think the afternoon will just naturally play a little tougher. Wind and weather overall isn't much of a factor this weekend, but just as the days go on, the greens firm up, they get bouncier, they get even more difficult to hold. So my way to play that hole was I picked my 4 favorite guys in the afternoon to bogey it. I bet them all, and then I parlayed them on DK. So I'm kind of going to take it on like a round by round basis, but just to give you a sense of how the books think this is going to play, they've got round score props up on FanDuel and DraftKings for round 1. It's a par 70. For the members, it's a par 72. They convert 2 of the par 5s into really long par 4s for the US Open. So it's a par 70. Like the average like over under score for like any golfer in the field is like 72.5. So they think the average score is going to be like 2-3 over for your average professional golfer. It's insane.
That is incredible. I don't think I've ever seen totals that high in any PGA event I've ever bet on. I've only been betting on golf for 3-4 years now, but
it's going to be like the US Opens that we saw, kind of back in the day. Like guys have been able to get after it a little bit in recent years. And on top of that, like the USGA, like their brand is tough golf. Like they want this course to play tough. And I think they were disappointed in how LA Country Club ended up playing last year. I think it was a little softer and a little easier than they anticipated. And guys were able to put up some pretty good scores. So I think the concern is that they maybe overcorrect a little bit this year and, for in golf terms, like lose control of the course. Like Wyndham Clark in his interview today said, like the greens are like borderline, like on the cusp of just like being broken, like with how fast they're running.
All right, well, let's talk about a couple guys that you've targeted that fit the profile of somebody that could have some success here. One, what qualities do those individuals have that make them stand out to you? And who should we be thinking about sprinkling on a little bit this week?
For sure. So I did approach this week a little differently. Like usually if I bet an outright, it's somebody that I'm bullish on because, they check all my boxes, they're playing good, et cetera, et cetera. And if I bet them, I'll probably take them to like finish in the top 40 or top 30 as kind of just to cover the outright bet, if you will. I'm just not doing that this week because I think even the guys that I like are like just as easy to miss the cut than they are to contend. Like I do think on Sunday, the leaderboard is going to be a lot of the top names in the world. And there's going to be a kind of a mismatch of like random long shots that just got lucky and don't find enough trouble. So for the most part, I'm looking for just accurate drivers. Like the closer you are to the center of the fairway, the less likely you are to run off into the brush off the sides. Obviously, like in any tournament, but especially here, you got to be dialed in with your irons. Like the whole bag's coming into play here. And then you have to have some good short game because of how tough these greens are. Like the green and regulation percentage is going to be it's going to be well under 50%, meaning you are going to have to get up and down from a lot of cheeky spots. And it's going to require some creativity. When Martin Keimer won this in 2014, like pretty much every time his ball was off the green, he was Texas wedge putting it back on, like very, very little chipping. It's like this really thin Bermuda grass that guys just like, it's just uncomfortable to chip off of. So Tiger in his presser today said he's like putting with like a 7-iron off the greens. Webb Simpson's hitting a 3-wood. Like, you're going to see a lot of around the green styles of play that you're not used to. So for me, I kind of just boil that down to like creativity, like just guys that can sort of creatively work the short game a lot of different ways here. So when Scotty's in the field, it is tough to feel confident about any other outright just because he's just a world beater. But I did get the jump on one number, on one guy that I'm extremely bullish on. And even though his number has gotten hammered down a little bit, I still think it's probably worth grabbing at the current number. And that is Sepp Straka. Sepp Straka, right now, you can get him at 90-1. I got him at 200-1 like a week and a half ago. So I'm obviously feeling pretty good about that. But dude, this guy has just quietly been a top 3 player in the world since the Masters. I mean, the run he's on right now is pretty ridiculous. He took 5th at the Memorial, he took 5th at the Charles Schwab, missed the cut at the PGA, 8th at Wells Fargo, 11th at Zurich, 5th at Heritage, 16th at the Masters, 16th at the Players. And I think the way that he's doing that is even more encouraging. He's like top 5 on tour in driving accuracy this year. He's gaining tons of strokes with his irons, really at every sort of like distance bucket. And he's crafty around the greens. He's kind of a hot and cold putter, but the putter has been more hot than cold over the last couple of months. And again, the results here speak for themselves. This is just a really, really good golfer. If I was a sports book, I would be setting him at probably 40-1 based on where his game is right now. So again, I still think it's more likely than not it's Scotty time. But if somebody down the board is going to make a run here, I think Sepp is playing way too good a golf to be listed at 90-1. So I'm pretty heavy on Sepp.
Looking on DK right now, I'm seeing winner without at 60-1. So winner without Scotty.
I bet that as well.
Sepp 60-1. That's something that you taught me on the last segment that we did.
Yeah, I took that too.
Plus 230s out there for top 20 finish on Sepp. When he gets it rolling with the putter, he's very scary. I remember he was on like 58 watch at one point.
Yeah, that was at the John Deere last year that he ended. Pretty sure he ended up winning. I mean, he's just, when he has it, he has it. And one of the things I like about him too is like just he's got a great temperament. And I think for this week, above all weeks, like that's really, really going to matter. I mean, this is a course that's going to beat the hell out of these guys for 4 straight days. And I think anybody with a temper that is easily rattled, I think they're going to struggle here. Like, you got to be comfortable when things aren't going your way. And I just think he's playing amazing golf. He checks all the boxes. And the fact that he's done it in these big boy tournaments, I mean, like he played well at the Memorial, played really well at the Masters. I think he went 3-0-1 against the U.S. in the Ryder Cup last year. Like, the guy's not afraid of the moment. He is a true pro, and he's someone that I think you're going to see him win plenty of tournaments in the years to come, and I think a major will come eventually.
I love that. Next, anybody else in mind? That was a damn good breakdown of Sepp. I want to hear some more if you got anything else.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, like, I haven't personally clicked this yet, and I think I'm probably going to. I didn't know how many outright bets I wanted to have going into the weekend. Like, right now, I'm pretty much only on Sepp. I think I'm probably going to click Ludwig at 22-1, and I typically don't bet outrights that are, under 30-1, but this just feels like it's Ludwig's time. I think if you don't bet Scotty and you want to bet a stud, Ludwig hands down would be my pick. I mean, we saw him make a run at the Masters. This is a guy that will win plenty of majors throughout his career. And just every aspect of his game is good. He crushes the ball. He hits it on a rope dead straight. The irons are insane. And I think the short game is just very underrated. And he also fits that bill of, again, the temperament. We saw him on the back nine of Sunday at the Masters, made a double bogey on 11 that pretty much like sealed the deal on him having like any chance to win. And he's walking off like laughing with his caddy. Like, this guy is impossible to get pissed off out there. And I think part of the reason we're getting a decent number here is there's a little bit of concern about his knee. Like, he has a bit of a meniscus issue. I can tell you personally, I know that he's completely fine. We've got a friend in the camp over there. He's good to go. And the last thing about him, like, I don't need to tell you that Ludwig Aberg is good at golf. Like, you just watch him play and he's incredible. The one thing in particular that he does, he's, I think, number 1 on tour in apex height. That just means that when he hits the ball, it goes really, really high. that is a must here. Like if you want any chance of maybe holding these greens, especially from like 180 yards out, the higher the ball is, the softer that it's going to land. And that is just another quality of his game that I think is a necessity here. So again, I don't really go at this number a whole lot, but I think if like, I usually ask myself, like, who's the guy that if they won, you'd be sitting there Sunday pissed off that you didn't bet him. And I think for me, it's Ludwig. I was pretty torn between going him or Brooks in that range. And I like where Ludwig's game is a lot more than Brooks right now. So I think Ludwig at 22 will probably be my last outright.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his track record, 8th at the Players, 2nd at the Masters, T10 at the RBC, quietly a T5 last week. You very, very smartly talked me out of playing him at the PGA, so thank you for that. In great form, playing awesome in huge events. Like, he definitely checks those boxes, that's for sure. You mentioned Brooks. I'm curious to hear your take on how you think that the LIV guys will fare at a course with this level of difficulty. Obviously, those guys are playing fewer events. There are talks that the venues that they're playing at may not be nearly as challenging as something like this. Give me your thoughts on some of those LIV guys, and if there are any in particular that you may have your eyes on.
I don't really penalize them for like the courses that they play on. Like I feel like the belief is that they're playing on these like municipal courses. Like they're still playing on real courses. Like they played Trump Doral a couple weeks ago. Like Doral is a beast of a course. He used to host PGA events. I mean, like they're still playing on tough courses. And again, like we the last couple of majors, like we're still seeing guys like hang around. Brooks, I thought was going to make a run at the PGA, and he just got screwed, man. It poured rain. I think it was Thursday into Friday, and they didn't do lift clean in place from the fairway, which I thought was just a disgrace because guys were hitting the ball perfectly dead center of the fairway, and on like 50% of those balls, there was mud on them. Like that's just like that's just bullshit. And yeah. Brooks hit it. Brooks was making a supercharge, was on the one really gettable par 5, bombed his drive way down there, center fairway. He's got a golden look to get to the green in 2. And he had mud on his ball, hit 3-wood, and it went like 50 yards right into the woods, and he made double bogey. And that was pretty much the end of his tournament. So, like, Brooks is always going to be, a potential winner at any major. I just believe that. Like the results have spoken for themselves. When you talk about the temperament, the guy is just the killer. I think he's always going to be in the mix. And I think there's one other LIV guy. I mean, I think Bryson could contend too. We've seen him in the mix at the last 2 majors. He's first round leader at the Masters. And this is just a course that I think is going to suit him well. It's going to neutralize his driver a little bit. Like, you can't really pump driver here, but he hits his driver further than everybody else. He still hits his other clubs further than everybody else. Like, his 8-iron goes like 190 yards or something ridiculous. And similar to Ludwig, he's got that high ball flight. Short game's good. And when his putter gets rolling, man, I think like his putter is the most underrated aspect of his game. Like, Bryson is a phenomenal putter. So I still think like it wouldn't surprise me one bit if a LIV guy came in and took this down, but I think it's Brooks, Bryson, or probably nobody else. Like, there's a lot of chatter about Cam Smith, again, because of the need to be crafty and creative around the greens that sort of fits his bill, but the guy hasn't hit a fairway in like 3 months. I would be pretty shocked to see that.
I love the take on Bryson. He's fun to watch. He hits the shit out of the ball. I mean, the way you're describing these fairways, it sounds like he can pull out a 4-iron or a driving iron of some sort and be bombing it 330 with that alone. So
no, he will hit a 4-iron at some point this week that will roll out to like 320 yards. That's going to happen.
Scary. This is scary. Well, hey, it wouldn't be a DubCast episode with the Moonshot if we didn't get at least one mega bomb. Is there anybody, with scary odds that you're like, this guy could fit the profile of somebody who could win here, or are we staying away?
To win, it would be tough.
Yeah.
On the show I did earlier with my buddy in Tour Junkies, like, he laughed at me at this take. This guy's not going to win. He's had a terrible year in comparison to last year, but like, in terms of course fit, like I think Ricky Fowler could make some noise this week. I do like Ricky this week. And look, this is by no means, like, this guy's not going to win this tournament, but you can get a little better than 2-1 for this guy to make the cut. And that's Tiger Woods. I think Tiger makes the cut this weekend. I think if there's any sort of course setup that could possibly cater to the version of Tiger that we're currently living with, it's this place. It is as flat as can be, so easier on his ankle and his knee. Again, he doesn't have to pull driver everywhere, and the short game creativity is something that no matter how old or how injured Tiger is, like he's always going to have that. It's going to be really hot. He's talked about how like it's a severe problem for him if the temperatures dip into the 50s and his body just stiffens up and he can't do it. It's going to be hot as balls this week with no wind, no rain. So if there was if you could create a course and a venue and a setup for Tiger in a lab for him to make a cut, hang around, and not implode, I think it's probably here at Pinehurst. So I will be betting Tiger to make the cut.
That is fantastic. That's my favorite play of the day that you've rattled off so far. I want to be respectful of you and your time. You've given us at 3-4 plays to be targeting. You're one of the sharpest golf cappers I've ever been around and spoken with. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
I will tell you that your subscribers and the DubCast listeners that have listened to previous episodes have been blown away by you and everything that you've done. It sounds like you may have a special offering for folks that are tuning into this episode in the form of a free trial. So make sure if you're tuning in to check the caption below for access to the MOONSHOT server where he will be releasing action all week long.
Absolutely, man. Again, I'll be happy to say it. We're going to do, like, from the time that this comes out, free pass for 3 days, pretty much the entire U.S. Open weekend. So come in, even if you miss, like I already gave you most of the outright bets that I'm on here anyway, but I think the real money to be made this weekend is going to be targeting live props, 3 balls, hole scores, and stuff like that. And I think at a course like this, that's just going to play as difficult and as weird as it is, I do think that there's a lot of money to be made in some of those markets if you're just wired in and glued to your TV and glued to all of your data tools, which I will be for the next 4 days. So tap in, have some fun with the community. Let's win some money, and then I hope you stay.
All right, Kenny. Thank you so much, man. You're the best.
Always a pleasure, Dash. Be good, man.